The Rough Country intake that we have here today will be one of your most affordable options available for 09 to 13 5.3 Silverado owners who might be after a stealthy black finish along with a high flow oiled filter, all at a rock bottom price. Now the Rough Country will not require the use of a custom tune and can be had for right around that mid $100 price point. Install for this option is going to get a pretty soft 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. I would say take about an hour or so to complete from start to finish, but if you hang with me for a bit, we'll walk you through that job later in the video. So Rough Country has really expanded their catalog over the last few years and offer parts, I would say, for nearly every aspect of your truck or Jeep, and most of them, let's be honest guys, are going to be pretty affordable when compared to other options in a given category. Now the category we're talking about here today obviously is going to be the cold air intake category, which you can find as low as 150, maybe 160 bucks like the Rough Country option, all the way up to the $600-700 price point for some of your fancier AFE or K&N options. So again, you have a lot of variety to choose from depending on your budget. Now, one thing you will notice with some of your more expensive options out there is that they usually include a more elaborate sealed airbox design that completely replaces all of your factory hardware. That's not really going to be the case here at the Rough Country. Instead, this option is going to include this metal heat shield here to be used in place of your factory airbox. So you are still maintaining some of that factory cold air ducting, pulling air from the front of the truck, but again, it's not as fancy as some of your more expensive options. Now, if you did want to go ahead and grab something, maybe a sealed enclosure to help combat some of the higher intake air temperatures, that can be an issue with something like this. Well, again, you have plenty of options, but the flip side is with an open filter like this, you're going to get a lot of growl from that 5.3 under hard acceleration. So kind of weigh the pros and cons here, guys. If you're not building a full-out race truck, sealed enclosure or lower IATs aren't as critical for your application. And if you value a more budget-friendly option with a lot of noise, this is certainly going to be a solid bet. But let's take a closer look at the filter. And again, this is going to be a high-flow, reusable oiled option. These guys typically flow a little bit better than a dry option. The only downside to that equation is, of course, the increased maintenance of an oiled filter, basically cleaning and re-oiling the filter itself, which really isn't all that difficult. You just have to be careful not to over-oil the filter itself. Now, the dry filter, on the other hand, well, it really can't be washed like an oiled option. Instead, really can only be cleaned out with compressed air. Therefore, you're not going to get as much life out of a dry filter as you would with an oiled filter here. Now moving right next door, you got the intake tube itself. As you can see, guys, powder-coated aluminum option here in black, kind of a satin black, I would say. And it lends itself to a slightly stealthier vibe underneath the hood. Now, of course, if you wanted, you could always find affordable chrome or polished options if you did prefer a little bit more flash under the hood, but I feel like most owners out there probably like the low-key aspect of the powder-coated black finish. Last but not least, we have to talk about features outside of appearance, and of course, the big expectation with something like this is a little bit more power, right? Now, Rough Country doesn't give us any exact numbers with this kit in regards to horsepower or torque, but it's been my experience over the years with these things, the no tune required options, to pick up anywhere, I would say, high single digit, low double digit gains, depending on the condition of the filter or intake you're replacing. Now, outside of that, of course, you're looking at things like improved throttle response for one, but also that added growl coming from under the hood of the 5.3 here with this open element style filter. But now we want to shift gears and talk a little bit more about the installation. And honestly, if this is your first modification you're tackling on your 5.3, don't worry, it's definitely one of the easier mods you will ever tackle. But to give you a better idea of just how things will go down on your truck at home, feel free to check out our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown right now.
Tools for this install: an electric ratchet or ratchet, 13, 10, 8, and 7mm socket, as well as an extension, a 5/32 Allen bit, a T15 Torx bit, a 10mm wrench, as well as a 15/16 wrench, a small flathead screwdriver, and the kit provided Allen key. Hey guys, first I'm going to show you a little clip on how to remove your stock cold air intake. Remember, this is going to be for the 5.3 Silverado as well as the 5.3 Sierra. Then I'll be back to show you how to get your new cold air intake in.
All right, first thing we're gonna do is disconnect our MAP sensor. You have to press down on this little gray locking tab. As you press down on it, just gently pull, set the sensor connection aside. Once you've done that, you need to grab your 8mm socket and loosen up this first band clamp, securing the air box to our intake tube. Once you've loosened up that clamp, your primary coolant line over here might be connected to this little tab on the intake tube. It's just a little plastic fitting. You just have to grab something like a trim tool or a small pry tool and just kind of pry that out of there. All right, next we're gonna disconnect our crankcase ventilation hose, and it's connected to this little resonator box here. This is also just held in with a kind of rubber grommet and a plastic ring. So just gently pull on it in order to release it. Okay, we're almost ready to remove our intake system. All we need to do now is disconnect this clamp, securing our intake tube to our throttle body with the same 8mm socket. Once you've sufficiently loosened up that clamp, you can see it's kind of wiggling around here. You want to go ahead and grab a hold of the intake tube. I like to grab on this little piece here behind this little resonator as well as right here. Just gently pull back all the way. There's also going to be a plastic grommet on top of this resonator here. There's a little fitting on top of the engine there, on top of the intake manifold. You just also have to make sure you pull that up and out as well when you pull the intake system off. Once you've done that, you want to pull the intake tube away from the air box with that first clamp that we loosened up and pull the intake tube and resonator assembly out as one piece. All right, now all we need to do is remove our factory air box. It's pushed into the inside of the fender here, but there's not actually any hardware holding it in place. There's also a mounting tray directly underneath the air box with some grommets, kind of keeping this thing situated. All you need to do is kind of gently pull up and out. You can see ours is extremely loose because we do so many intakes, but just apply gentle pressure in order to unseat those fittings on the bottom and remove the intake box as one piece.
Now that we've shown you how to take your stock cold air intake out, we are going to need to take the MAF sensor out of our old cold air intake as well. That is going to require a T15 Torx bit. I'll show you how to do that now. Again, with your T15 Torx bit, remove the two bolts at the top to remove your MAF sensor. With them removed, you can pull out your sensor. Now we can take our sensor and place that into our new intake tube, and with the kit provided hardware as well as Allen key, bolt that down. At this time, we could also take our new hose fitting and place that into our intake tube as well. To tighten that down, use a 15/16 wrench and give it one good turn. Now at this time, I would tell you to grab your 5/8 drill and drill a hole right here in the bottom of the cold air box tray. However, our truck has already been drilled out, so we're just gonna get to the rest of the install. Now it's time to place our airbox bracket onto our fender using our kit provided hardware. Now with a 10mm socket as well as a 10mm wrench, tighten down your bracket. Place your two threaded grommets into the holes in the bottom of the intake tray. Now we can place our heat shield in and we'll bolt it down to our fender bracket. And bolt your bracket to your heat shield using our kit provided hardware. Now it's a little bit hard to see, but these two bolts are going to thread into the grommets that we put in earlier. They are a 13mm socket. Once we get them hand threaded in, we'll tighten them down with our 13mm socket. Now take your adapter for your filter, place that into your filter, And then we could put it into our heat shield. And with the kit provided hardware, hand thread your bolts in. And with your 5/32 Allen bit, tighten the bolts down. Now take your intake tube fitting and place that over your filter, along with 2 clamps provided in the kit. Now we can take our intake tube and place that into our fitting. Now taking your reducer fitting, place 2 clamps on the front and the back. Place that onto your throttle body and feed your intake tube into your reducer. To uninstall your PVC pipe, take a flathead screwdriver to undo the clip, and it should come right off. Our new kit does provide us with a new hose. Now take your new PVC hose and put that in place of where your old one was, and onto the new intake tube as well. Now with our 8mm socket, tighten down all of our clamps. And for our filter clamp, it's a 7mm socket or a flathead screwdriver. And underneath the intake tube, don't forget to replug your MAF sensor. And that's going to wrap up our review and install of the Rough Country Cold Air Intake, fitting the 09 to 13 5.3 Silverado, as well as Sierra. For more videos just like this, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.